Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of TalkFlow. This is episode 28. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the 5 skills or habits that make a good, actually not good, but excellent freelancer.
Yeah,
And yeah, that's pretty much it.
more like
And
five
yeah,
tips,
we
right?
are staying consistent as well. We're literally recording this a day after the previous episode was released. So
Let's see how long we
we're,
keep it up for.
we're keeping our promises. Cool.
Cool, but yeah, I think this is a topic that has been sort of brewing in my mind recently, and it just sort of came out while we were just chatting before we
Yeah.
record this as well. So I think has a lot of value. It's something that I think we covered before, but not in this way. Like I think last year or something when we first started out, we gave like tips and stuff, but that
Mm.
again came from a beginner's point of view, right? We were both like one less year more experience, and like this is sort of like an update of like what we expect when we are looking for freelancers to work with, as well as what we want ourselves to be when we work with clients.
Yeah. I think a lot of these tips we kind of figured out from working with other freelancers on our projects.
Mm-hmm.
Also, our kind of experience, like Vim said, growing and in the past year and whatnot. These
Yeah,
are the skills and habits that we found that the top tier Webflow developers do. So,
yeah.
um, if one
Or
of
like
these,
what,
yeah,
or tips like we just wish a lot of the freelancers that we used to work with or work with have, just so that it
yeah,
just makes things a lot easier.
yeah, and I think maybe if you're watching this and you don't have one of these habits or skills, it's better to start, you know,
Yeah.
having these in
If
your arsenal just
I
to
would even go,
level up
I
your
would
workflow
even
game.
I would even go as far as saying like if you're finding hard to get jobs or work with other agencies or freelancers, you're probably lacking in somewhere of these 5 places. Or
Definitely.
especially if you're failing to get repeat clients or repeat orders from agencies, or even see it sort of decrease, right? When you get started, you have like two, three, and then it sort of dwindles to like nothing.
Mm,
You're probably missing something here that I think most agencies, I don't know whether they will say it because you don't,
mm.
maybe we are becoming more conflict avoidance these days, but I certainly need to step up and say it when I do see it. But yeah, just having this look at yourself on these 5 points would be definitely helpful.
Yeah, and just one more thing that I wanted to mention before we jump into the first point is, I think a lot of these stuff that we're going to mention, we've kind of learned from hiring
Working.
freelancers because when you're a
Yeah.
freelancer, you're going to work with clients and agencies. They won't necessarily tell you these exact things, right? But then
Yeah.
once you hire a freelancer, hire a Webflow developer, you kind of look
Yeah.
at it in a different kind of light. You kind of see
Yeah.
yourself become that client, and then you can understand and see the full picture.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah, I
because,
mean that's perhaps why, because a lot of freelancers, if you look at yourself and you kind of were clueless about these 5 tips
yeah.
because you
And
perhaps haven't hired a Webflow developer before. So
and I think what you're sort of trying to say is like when you're working with clients, no client is going to tell you this because they don't know this themselves. But the thing is,
mm,
in the past year, both of us have worked with, I think, different agencies. We've been part of agencies that we were freelancers, and we always get repeat orders from them, or they sort of trust us a lot more. And
mhm.
I think now having the foresight of like what we actually did, and it gives you a perspective that you actually won't get if you're working with clients only.
Yeah,
And most agencies won't tell you this as well because either they're just too busy or they just don't want to hurt your feelings, or
yeah,
so I think it's
pretty
definitely
much.
some unique perspectives that we're sort of bringing to this.
Definitely. I think just for the first point, this is my favorite quote of all time, but standing out a third of an inch. I think I've already mentioned enough about this in previous episodes, so Vim, you can take this.
Yeah, this my point. I'm stealing it from you. But
Yeah.
but I think I tweeted about it like recently that if you want to be a successful freelancer, just do 10% more than what you're paid for. And trust me, that really makes it. You okay, bro?
I'm all right, man. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, it's like if you stand one third of an inch, or I would say like 10% of what they're paying you for,
Mm,
that actually impresses a lot of people, not just clients, but agencies. If they're just paying you to, maybe just build out a site and they didn't talk about any interactions, and you go that 10% of just adding some interactions
mm,
or taking the liberty of, checking for responsiveness or SEO and whatnot. Just doing things that, I wouldn't say do things that you're not paid to do, but just 10% more, just a little bit more, it's going to impress them, especially if you're working with them for the first time. And
Yeah.
recently, I think I told Shais literally like before the call, is like I've been working with a new freelancer, and I expected to just give the project. He'll do maybe 60%, 50% of it, which is what, most of my experience working with freelancers are. They get to a point where it's like 70%, and then the last 30% I sort of take on, because there's not a lot client feedbacks and a lot of revisions that we end up doing that I don't want to burden the freelancer. But for this specific freelancer, which I think I want to shout out later once the project goes live, he sort of took a lot of, like, not just 10%, but I think he went like 100% from what he was paid to do. And I sort of feel guilty now, because I was like, I need to pay you more. But I sort of didn't even jump in the project. It's the first time in the whole year of hiring people, I didn't even touch that project. I just let it up to him. After the first check-in, I was so impressed that, you know what, I think he can handle it. I don't need to manage him. I don't need to micromanage him or anything like that. He just understood what I was trying to say, and he went the step beyond to do things that I didn't even tell him to do. Like, there were interactions that I didn't even think that needed to be on the site, because I was expecting like a normal scroll animation, but he went one step beyond and do something more interactive that I wouldn't have done myself. And then that sort of gave me the impression of like, okay, now I need to work with him another time. Like, I want to give him another project, just so that I want to see how he does it again, and
Yeah.
and that's the whole point of like what this episode sort of becomes, is like, just impress your client, your agency, or whatever, or even your employer. As I said, if you get the chance to impress, you should impress, because that is going to definitely lead to more business and more money for you.
I like how you said if you see a chance, because a lot of people, I mean, this kind of falls onto the umbrella of over delivering, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, when I mention over delivering, I get a lot of people, telling me, "Oh, what do you mean by over delivering? Is it like, do I have?"
Oh,
A lot of
I
people, they
know.
think over delivering is like just one thing, right? Like every single project, I just give them another mouse interaction or hover interaction, whatever. It's not that, right? You have to look at your client. Every client is different. You have to kind of analyze your client and see, okay, what will be worth over delivering? What to them, what to the client will be considered over delivering, right? So, for example, one client I had a couple of weeks ago, their main pain point was that they wanted to launch quite quickly, and it wouldn't make sense for me to go to them and be like, oh, if it wouldn't have made sense for me to go to them and make another mouse interaction, or sorry, hover interaction, and say, oh, that's over delivering. No, because that's not their main pain point. They don't give a shit about that. So what I done is I analyzed them and said, okay, for me to be considered over delivering on this project, is I deliver it earlier. That is what over delivering is. It's like you have to be very unique to each client, and it requires a lot of analysis with the client and whatnot. So yeah, every client is different. Just make sure you understand the pain points of the client and just over deliver specific to
And
that client, if that
what
makes sense.
most people sort of say is like, under promise and over deliver. That's bullshit. You should never under promise and over
Yeah.
deliver, because that you're just setting a lower bar and just meeting the minimum standard you're actually supposed to meet. What I would normally say is, you promise what you can do and you go one step ahead. That is what
Yeah.
actual over deliver is. You don't under promise and then you meet them where you were supposed to and say that's over delivering. That's not over delivering.
Yeah, because if you
And
under promise, you won't really get the client in the
there's
first
no
place.
point. Like,
So
what are you over
I mean, we're
delivering?
going to talk about promises later down the
Yeah,
line of
yeah.
this video, but yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and one more point that I wanted to add was, some people might think, oh, why am I going to over deliver? They're only paying me X amount of money for this deliverables. Going beyond that, it's taking a hit on my business. Well, if you think in the short term, yeah, it's definitely not quote unquote profitable if you're spending an extra week that you're not being paid for. But then in the long term, if you do that extra 10%, let's say you do an extra couple of three extra days from what you're actually supposed to end the project, whether there could be extra feedback or whatever it is, right? It's going to give such a good impression that the client or the agency is going to come back. And that is what I sort of start seeing now. Because I remember, I think like 6-7 months ago, I used to complain about feedback, right? Client feedback, and absolutely hated it. Like I was like, oh, why are they, giving me so much feedback? Just take what I give you, blah blah blah. But then I switched that around and just be like, you know what, just give me as much feedback, because I think I was taking the feedback personally, and somewhere I realized it's their website. They can get to make every single change that they want, and they're paying for it. So why am I complaining, right? And the switch sort of then became, clients are sort of repeating work, right? They're coming in for different work, or they're giving more work. Before this, they say in the beginning like, oh, we're going to come back with you for more work, but because of that, I didn't over deliver, quote unquote over deliver, they don't come back, right? They go with another person, or they find something else, or they just give up. They don't want to deal with all this again. So yeah, I think this is a real, my example from what I saw firsthand of just standing out 1/3 of an inch.
Yeah, I think this is kind of besides the point, but I really like how you said before I was thinking this and now I think this. I think the whole point of TalkFlow, I'm not sure if you
Yeah,
guys remember, is for us to kind of almost document our journey,
yeah,
see, for the audience to see us growing. And yeah, man, I love that. Like, you saw yourself at one point and now you kind of change your mind. So yeah, man,
yeah,
it's just like the process of growing as a freelancer. And that's kind of what
yeah,
the whole point of TalkFlow is about.
yeah.
But
Because when we
I
started this,
think,
right, I had only 1 year plus of actually opening up Webflow and working on it. I had not been employed. I've never worked in another agency before. And like
yeah.
in that 1 year since we've done this, there's so much that happened that literally changed the way we actually look at all these things, right?
100%, man. Yeah, definitely. I think for me, when I first started, it was when we were, I think on the first episode, it was been less than a year that I was
Yeah,
doing Webflow, I believe.
yeah,
But yeah, like just growing and documenting it is sick, man. Like, but yeah, that's beside the point. Anyway, point two, point two, make working with you easy. And this is another point that Vim made, but I just want to touch upon it just quickly. I think by making, when we say make working with you easy, it's not just one specific thing. It's about a lot of stuff, you know. Your whole, for example, from the first touch point you have, for me, when I want to, if I want to work with a Webflow developer, I want to speak to them. First, I want to make sure that the communication is easy and fast. I don't want to, be having to follow up on you on certain stuff, So just making that aspect easy. Another thing Vim mentioned is payments as well. So like if somebody wants to, at the end of the project or at the start of the project, want to give them a deposit or whatever, just make that
yeah.
process easy for me. I've
So
hired
much other
people
things
from
to deal
other
with. Yeah,
countries, and they tell me, "Oh, the bank is not working, etc." Fair enough, fair
yeah,
enough. But
yeah,
just find a way to make it easy for me, whether that's
yeah.
even like having a step-by-step thing laid out on Notion, something like that, right?
Or
Just make it,
just give, yeah,
yeah.
like a lot of the issues that I end up facing with hiring new people is like they just don't have the payments sort of set up. They still give you bank details, and especially if you're in India, it's very difficult. Like the banks are quite suspicious when foreign
Mm-hmm.
amounts starts to come in. So you're like, oh, the money got bounced back, or you got refunded. Can you send it again? And for me, I do payments at the end of the month. I tell the freelancers like I batch all the payments at the end of the month just because it's easier for me, and it's just so much easier to deal with all the payments at one go rather than like in between, but random dates that I don't even remember if I paid the person. And then when you're ready to pay and suddenly you run into this issue of like, oh, the bank is not accepting your money, or the bank detail is wrong. I have to wait for like another 2 days for you to come back and tell me what's wrong. That whole process is just like, oh my god, can you find an easier way? Can you have TransferWise or PayPal or some other method? It's just so much easier for me to pay rather than
Mm-hmm.
deal with all these annoying issues.
Yeah, I think it's just like that is one little point, but as I said, there's so many different aspects by what we
Yeah,
mean make
it's
working with
like
you easy.
another example is like
Communication,
it's
all of
like
that.
Slack, right? If you don't
Mm-hmm.
use Slack in our industry, I think every agency, every freelancer, or every company sort of uses Slack. Nobody sort of
Mm-hmm.
uses email anymore. I could be wrong, but
WhatsApp,
here in the UK,
WhatsApp,
it's
bro.
like, yeah, they're like, oh, I have WhatsApp. I'm like, nah, man, WhatsApp is personal. Like, I don't even
Yeah.
give my clients my WhatsApp number. I'm not gonna
Mm-hmm.
give a random freelancer my WhatsApp number. Or they're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I don't have Slack. I only have email. Then you're like, because our from what I know is like a lot of the clients that we have Slack, and we deal everything in Slack, and just this one freelancer that doesn't have Slack, you're like, it's just another. I guess makes it less
Yeah.
interesting to work with you. Just one annoying bit sort of reduces that brownie point of it.
Yeah. And as your job as a freelancer is to make sure that that you kind of
Yeah,
cut off all of that resistance to hiring you. You know
yeah.
what I mean? So all of these little things add up. And just another point, like just get with the times. You know, what I mean, who the hell uses WhatsApp nowadays for client projects? Like, just use Slack.
It's the worst. Never give your clients
Yeah.
your WhatsApp number. That's the
I mean, I
worst thing
did
you
have
could
that
do.
recently, but I had no other choice, so I had to kind of force myself to do it. But right, guys. So the third point is speed. I think this is a kind of habit and skill that I kind of put into the basket. But speed is super, super important. Not only to the, it's not only relative to working as a freelancer. I think in life as well, like in everything that you do, if you just do it faster, it's just
Yeah,
better. You know what I mean? Like firstly, you get to the end goal faster. And just a lot, who doesn't want to get to the end goal faster? You know what I mean? So, but especially in the whole freelancing world, right?
yeah,
Everyone has a deadline. Everyone wants to get things done yesterday. So just making sure that you have you're fast with your development is super
yeah,
important. But by fast, I don't mean just rush it and just miss out on everything. Make sure that it's efficient. I think a better way to put it is efficient rather than speed, because anyone can
yeah,
develop fast. You know
yeah,
what I mean? So just making sure you're fast but also efficient at the same time, where you don't miss out on all of these details. You know what I mean? So I think that's where a lot of people kind of miss out, because they have a very, very tight deadline. They rushed a lot of
yeah,
things to meet that deadline and focus on speed, and then they miss
yeah,
out on a lot of details. And then at the end, it
yeah,
just ends up getting longer than they expected anyway, because they missed out
yeah.
on a lot of details. So
It's
yeah, man, just
yeah.
yeah.
I actually wanted to tweet about this as well. It's like, can you guys hurry up when I give when you're given a project? Like, I want it done like as soon as possible, and that's what I would do. Like, once I get a project locked on, I immediately open up Webflow and I start working on it like as soon as I get a chance. But then I was also wondering, is that because I own the business and it's in my interest to get things done faster so that I make more money by getting more clients? If a project I scope out for 4 weeks, I get it done in 2 weeks. They paid for 4 weeks, right? So the 2 weeks is sort of quote
Hmm.
unquote profit, and I can churn in more clients on, within the same timeline. But as a freelancer, you actually don't have the need. um, but yeah, so there was one thing I didn't want to tweet. I don't want to get controversial on Twitter. But another thing that I sort of realized is, if you're a freelancer, you have multiple projects. That's fine. But if you
Hmm.
really cannot take on a project because you have another project that you're dealing with, or it just clashes to the point where you cannot balance things out, I would appreciate if you tell the agency or the client. People will appreciate it more than you saying yes and then taking your own sweet time to actually do it in your
Yeah,
schedule, because
I think,
everyone
bro,
has a schedule.
whenever a freelancer says yes to a lot of stuff, I get suspicious, man. Honestly, I'm not even
Yeah,
like lying, bro.
it's like
Like,
it's like
I think
whenever.
recently on my Twitter, I said I'm looking for a video editor, and I was
Yeah,
speaking to a couple of people, whatnot, and there was one guy who just said yes to everything, man. I was like, what? There's no way, man. Like, I was showing
either
him,
you're
oh,
so free or
like,
you just say yes to
yeah, bro.
everything.
Like, I was on a call with him, and it's not even yes, but like he was saying yes to a lot of stuff, but on top of that, he doesn't explain why. Like, for example, I asked him, okay, can you edit in this style or whatever? He said, this all he
Yeah,
said, yeah, that's fine, I can do that. But then I spoke to another guy and he said, yes, I can do that. But on top of that, he gave his reasoning. He said, yeah, we can do this, we can do that, we can do that.
yeah,
And I think that's kind of falls
that
also
helps a
also
lot.
into
Yeah,
sales as well. If you
yeah,
say yes, if for example, like let's say we get a project with a
yeah.
person saying,
I
can you
always
build a
go.
3-page
Yeah,
website for me with whatever, whatever.
yeah,
And if you just say yes, I can, although that is a correct answer, they'll get suspicious, bro. Always have a reasoning behind it. I mean, yeah, that's a
yeah,
tangent, but yeah, again,
yeah,
like my point is, whenever a freelancer says yes to a lot of things, can you get it done in one day? Yes. Can you do
yeah,
this? Yes. Da, 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 yes. It's a bit suspicious, man. So like,
yeah.
just be open and honest. Sometimes it's better to say
That is the
no,
fifth
because if you
point,
say
isn't
yes
it?
a lot, you know,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll get to this. I think there's an underlining issue here that is point 5. But if you're sticking strictly to speed,
Mm,
yeah, I would say more efficient. Like, get it done efficiently.
yeah.
Because if you're working, we are both speaking from freelancers' perspective, which I think comes across as a client perspective, right?
Hmm.
Clients would appreciate if you get things done quicker than you actually scope out for. Not to say you always need to do it. If you say it's going to take 4 weeks, they expect 4 weeks. But just imagine if you can deliver something in 3 weeks. and that 1 week they can either get more feedback, or they can add something, they can remove something. It just gives a little bit of playing ground. If it's 4 weeks and you take all 4 weeks, it's not wrong, but that
It's another form
that's
of over delivering, isn't it?
yeah, it's like that's where you can sort of go another step ahead. Like, if let's say you have 3 weeks to do a 3-page website or something like that, it's not gonna actually take you 3 weeks. Like, let's be honest here, we all know
Mhm.
we can get like a 5-page website done in like 2 days. That's the point of
Yeah.
Webflow. We say it's 4 weeks, 5 weeks, because we expect things to go wrong. We're gonna find some issues. But if you actually sit down and compress the time that you actually do it, you can actually get done a lot in 2 days, right? And again, it comes across as like, is that even ethical to ask, right? Can you hurry up? But it's not more of like get it done as soon as possible, but it's more like the faster you can get it done, the more things we could do. Like, we could play with interactions, we could oversell the client for something else. We have an extra week. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? I think again comes under that over delivering point of view.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Right, guys. So point 4 is having a proper pre-build process. Now, just to explain what this means, just a bit of context. Before I get into every single build, I have a set process of exact steps I need to do before I even start developing technically. And those steps are like, okay, go to your client first starter template, duplicate it, rename the project in a certain format. Excuse me, remove the favicon, remove the web clip, set the language to the client's language, go on the style guide, style the buttons, XYZ. Doing that and making sure that everything is properly set up before you start actually building the home page and the about page and whatnot. It just makes things so much faster, and this adds on to everything. It makes working with you easier. It makes you faster, and it helps you kind of stand out as well in a way.
Yeah.
So just, and you guys don't understand. Like before, I remember in the beginning, I used to just literally start from scratch, nothing, no style guide, nothing, bro,
Yeah.
no framework, nothing, and it used to be so slow, man. Like it took so long. But if you do everything correctly in the beginning, if you have a set process and everything is properly set up, it just makes building so much easier. It sets a kind of foundation. And if
Yeah.
you have a rubbish foundation, the rest of your website is going to be kind of rubbish as well. So setting a
Yeah.
proper foundation, which is the first initial step before you even start building, is super, super essential. And having a process that
Yeah.
allows you to do that is also essential. So I think
Yeah.
that is one thing that helps you stand out as a freelancer and helps you get
And it
hired
also makes you look a
often.
lot more professional. Once you have a process, you know what you need to ask the clients for. Like, hey, I need the font files, I need the assets, I need edit
Yeah.
access, I need this, I need that. And if you have any requirements, tell me so that I can plan for it. Having a set process before you start building on Webflow again helps you. It goes back to like the last 3 points that you mentioned: is speed, gets you more efficient. It allows you to over deliver, because now you can find things that you can improve on, things that you can do that extra bit. And most point 1 again.
Standing out.
Yeah,
Well,
over
make
delivering,
working
right?
with you easy.
Yeah, it makes working with you easier, because now I know exactly the next time your client has a project or another agency has a project with you, they know exactly what they need to send before you get started, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what we're sort of talking about comes from an agency point of view, but always remember that could be a client point of view. One
Yeah.
agency work is equal to one client work. That's how you should actually see it. Not, they're not two different things. Actually, when you look at it from the face of it.
Yeah, I think this is like a pretty. This is a more technical. This is more of a technical
Yeah,
tip than
yeah,
like whatever. But yeah, is so essential. Like just making sure you have a proper foundation before you even start building. It just
yeah.
really carries the rest of your build and whatnot, and yeah, it just makes things a lot easier. And it makes the website more scalable and maintainable as well for
Bro,
the client. So you are
it's
over delivering.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
there's so many times when they just don't do this pre-process phase, and then they don't plan for how it's supposed to function, and they just
Mm,
build it as you see it.
yeah.
And then you realize, oh wait, shit, that's not how it's supposed to be. Then you have to go and
Hmm.
rebuild again, or like add more
Yeah.
combo classes, and it just gets, especially towards the end of the project, when the client
It
starts
gets
to say like,
messy. It looks
it
completely
gets,
different.
it's completely different. As 3 4
Yeah.
combo classes, random ass names
Yeah.
going around. It's
I
just,
think I think that's I like that point, like pre-planning as well, like planning before you even jump on
yeah,
the project.
yeah, just
Like
look
the
at it.
technical side, like building a style guide. But I remember, so just a bit of a teaser. I'm building a clonable, right? And before I even started building, I was like, okay, how am I gonna go about this? Okay,
Yeah.
I can't use normal container elements. I have to use like fluid design. Okay, how am I gonna go about that? Da, da, da. So I was doing so many others, just pre-planning before I even touched the Webflow.
Yeah.
So doing that is super important. It just
It's like,
and to be honest, that kind of comes with experience, right? Like the more
yeah,
websites you build, the more you kind of get exposed to
yeah. You
how you
can
can go
sort
about
of,
developing.
yeah, you can see where a lot of the issues sort of might arise, and you can address it with the client. Be like, oh, how do you actually see this? How do you see this? Just all this before you even start building makes you look a lot more professional. When you see something that you
Hmm.
actually can't build, it looks more professional when you say it before even signing the contract and be like,
Yeah.
that is something you cannot build, or it's going to take a lot of time, rather than,
Hmm.
at the end of the project you come back with like, oh, I can't do this. It's not beyond.
Yeah.
And if
I
you
think
do
I think
arise,
Yeah,
yeah,
sorry. I think that's like when I said before when a freelancer says yes too often. I think that's
yeah,
you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's like when a freelancer
yeah,
says yes too often, it's kind of like okay, but how do you know that? Like, have you? It just kind of gives me a sense that he's inexperienced. Or
yeah,
when a freelancer is experienced, they can literally tell you step by step without any hesitation. Okay, this is how it's going to work. This is how it's going to work, and also
yeah,
this is how it's not going to work. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So it's like yeah, like s- just being open and honest to the client before you start the project, saying, okay, this is how we're going to go about it. Is that okay with you? Perhaps
yeah,
they had like an initial plan in mind of how they wanted to go about it, and then you, because you have experience, you can tell them, okay, no, that's not going to work.
yeah,
Whatever, this is how you should go about it. It kind of adds to your credibility and it makes you look
yeah,
more experienced, which means you're more likely to get hired and whatnot. So
yeah,
yeah, just making sure that you plan ahead, which also just comes from experience, is super essential.
yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think
I think,
yeah, point
yeah,
point five is like the kind of
the the
the
base of all of it.
the daddy habit, if you can say.
What are
It's
you
like
watching, bro?
yeah, yeah, it's like one of the main habits, and without this, like literally nothing else matters. Like keep
Yeah.
your promises.
And like, if you notice, every single point that we are sort of mentioning, we always end up to coming to this point.
Yeah.
Is, yeah, just if you're gonna be saying you're gonna take a day to do this, do it within the day. Or if you're gonna say, oh, I'll get this done by tomorrow evening, do it by tomorrow evening. Don't wait until tomorrow evening to actually get started. And
Hmm.
this is something that I've sort of, it's very hard to do it with clients as well, because there's so many factors that sort of come in. But
Hmm.
every time when you say you're going to do something, make sure you do it by then. Like when you say you're going to
Hmm.
send a proposal by Monday morning, do it by Monday morning. Don't just be like, oh, it's just a proposal, or I can send it
Hmm.
anytime. Don't keep saying sorry, like, oh, sorry, I got busy, I'll do it on
Yeah.
Tuesday. Because it feels like, I don't know where I heard this, but if you lie more than like 3 times, your words have no meaning anymore. Your promises have no
Hmm.
value to it, and people are not going to trust you anymore. And
Hmm.
now imagine you're working with an agency or a client, and more than 3 times you're like, oh, I'll do it this by tomorrow. Oh yeah, I'll do this by tomorrow, and I'll do this by tomorrow, and you don't meet it.
Hmm.
They're going to have a sour experience with you, and I can assure you they're not going to come back to you, unless again you have a valid excuse to being late. Maybe you're busy, got caught up in an emergency, whatever. That's fine. But just constantly not keeping your promise, it will kill your business and it will kill your career 100%.
100%, yeah, 110%. It's like I think all of this comes down to two things, right? I think number one is discipline, and number
Yeah,
two
being honest.
is kind of is a bit more than that. It's like you thinking that if you lie to the client, it'll kind of impress them.
Yeah,
For
no.
example, let's say the client wants it done
Yeah,
as fast as possible. You say, "Oh, I can do it in the next hour." You
yeah,
think that will impress them, but it will not,
yeah,
right? What impresses clients and what makes them want to work with you even more is honesty, and just be
yeah,
honest with yourself. Like I remember in the beginning of my career, I'm gonna be open. I used to say, "Yeah, yeah, I can do this. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah." You know what I mean? But it's not true. Like although as much as you think that's going to impress the client, it's not. It's better if
Yeah,
you just be honest. Although
it
that in hindsight it looks like, oh
yeah,
no, you know what I mean? So
initially it's
yeah,
going to be like, oh wow, he can do it by tomorrow, and then when you don't meet
yeah,
it, that's going to be more disappointing than you saying it's going to take 2 days to do it, because
yeah. I
now
think
they expected something and they didn't get it.
yeah, breaking a promise is like
It's very
just
easy
the
to do.
relationship is gone, man. It's
Yeah,
gone.
it's it's
So
it's very easy to do, but yeah, it's
yeah,
something that I think I'm sort of trying to keep in mind. as well. And
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
if you do need to break your promise, let's say you commit to a project, they want a certain interaction. This happened to me recently. They wanted a very specific in their design. When I saw it, I knew that's going to be an issue, but I didn't give too much thought into it. I just thought I could do it. And then while working on it, I realized you cannot actually do it on Webflow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now I didn't want to go back to the client saying I can't do it. I said, hey, I overestimated it. You can't actually do it on Webflow, but these are like different options that we could take. We have done this, we have done this, we have done this. And I think the second option is the best. And the client was like, yeah, great, that looks great, go ahead, I'm happy to change the design. That sort of, if you need to break a promise, tell them why and ways that you sort of rectified it. That really
Mm-hmm.
helps.
Yeah, I think Pete from Pete Digital said that it's like ACE. I don't know. It's like a sales strategy. I'm not really too sure what it means, but it's like yeah, like you said, you identify the problem, like which is
Yeah,
breaking your promise, and then you tell the client, okay, this is a resolution.
yeah,
So yeah, doing that, yeah, I think yeah, that's a great method if you do break your promises. But again, try your best not to.
yeah,
Just make promises, and then don't overpromise. Just promise,
promise.
and
Yeah.
then over deliver on those promises. That is
If
like the
it's
key. You
Yeah.
know.
If you say it's going to take 3 weeks to do it, get it done by 3 weeks. There's no excuse for you to push it back, unless again, if a client is delaying you, or they get delaying feedback, or they delay giving content that's not in your
Yeah.
control, that is fine. But overall, if you put the work that you put, 3 weeks you should spend 3 weeks to build it. That's it. Like
Yeah.
external factors, that's fine. But what comes from you is what matters. For example, let's go back to the freelancer's point of view. If you're working with an agency, if because the agencies have their own deadlines with the client, and they have no obligation to tell you what the deadline is, right? They ask you how long it's going to take you to build it. You say, oh, I can get it done in a week. Great. Now you have an expectation set. Okay, 1 week. Okay, week 2 we can do QA, we can sort of impress the client a bit. And then 1 week later you don't see anything, the site's still empty or it's half done. Now
Mm-hmm.
you start to panic, right? Like for me, I panic like crazy when I don't see the site in 1 week, and I don't see it like sort of even halfway there. I panic like hell, and I'm like, are they actually working? Are they doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Just breaking that promise is like, it gets people, gives them anxiety. For me, it just gives me like crazy anxiety, like because I need to meet the deadline, right? Because I don't want to break the promise. And I think just keeping to that promise and like making sure you actually do things properly is definitely valuable.
100%. I think I just wanted to mention 2 points. I like what you said, the setting expectations, and also the second point is I rather a freelancer promise me something and not over
Yeah,
deliver than a freelancer promising me something and then over delivering. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So it's like, for example, before, as I said, when I'm gonna use this video editor example a lot, but
yeah,
when I was hiring a sorry, no, I was hiring a freelancer for a
mm,
development project, right, recently, and I I told him, okay, this is I gave him a test project. I gave two freelancers a test project. I said, okay,
yeah,
here's a test project. You just build it out, whatever. Give me a timeline and how much it'll cost and whatnot. Both of
yeah,
them gave me different timelines, but they delivered it on the same day. You know, how does that
mm,
make sense? Well, one of them, he overpromised and he under delivered.
yeah,
So he said, okay, yeah, I can get it done by Sunday. I believe he said, but he got it done like 3 or 4 days after.
yeah,
But then the other guy, he said, "Oh, I'll get it done by Tuesday," and he got it done by Tuesday.
yeah,
So it's like I'd rather a person initially make me feel like, "Oh, that's a bit long," but then at
yeah,
the end impresses me. Then a
yeah,
person initially, I'm like, "Oh, you can get it done by Sunday. That's amazing." But
yeah,
then
bro.
he
That is,
just doesn't meet my expectations. You know what I mean? So it's like
yeah.
doing
Because
that
then,
is I'd rather a person just be upfront and honest and meet their
and
promises. And the
imagine,
second point I want to mention,
yeah,
sorry, Fim,
yeah,
is setting expectations. A lot of times, us freelancers, we say, "Oh, the client was bad. They were telling me this, like whatever." Da, da, da. But bro, let's be honest.
yeah,
You, the freelancer, set the expectations. You're the one who promised what you promised. If you met up with those promises, I don't see a reason why the client is a bad client. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Most of the time, we can almost decide if we have a bad client or a good client.
yeah,
As long as you set the expectations right in the beginning, that
yeah,
is what makes a good client. If you set the wrong expectations and you under promise, setting the wrong expectations almost all the time comes from overpromising to the client.
Yeah.
And then, of
100%.
course, if you overpromise, how do you expect your client to be happy with what you've done? They have
Yeah.
all the right in the world to be unhappy with what you've done because you overpromised. Like, I was expecting
Yeah.
you to do this and you done this. So yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. The first point you mentioned, like they give you a very, a very early delivery date, like, oh, we can do it like by Sunday. And then when Monday comes and you look at the site expecting to see something and you don't see it, that panic is like, oh shit. Like, now will they meet it by even Tuesday, or can they even do this by
Mm-hmm.
that sort of puts people, especially if you don't tell somebody, oh sorry, I can't meet the deal. Like, if you can't keep the promise, at least tell them, like, oh sorry, I got busy with something else, I'm gonna do this by
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday. That is fine, that's still fine. But if you
Mm-hmm.
don't say anything, right, and then you're like, you expect me to come and, hey, is this done? Or hey, you expect the client to sort of come like, oh, I don't see anything, are you okay, is it done? That again puts this sourness in the whole relationship with working with agencies and clients, right? and
Yeah,
and the second
100%.
point you mentioned is like, whatever promise you make from us, right, like agency owners of working with clients, there's always this temptation of like, oh, this project is not worth it. I'm just gonna let them go. I'm just gonna say I can't do it. And
Mm-hmm.
initially, I thought that was a very good mindset because I don't want to be stressed out doing things I don't want to do. But then at the end of the day, they are also a business, and your contract or the payment is sort of a promise, right? I pay you, and you give me this website. And no matter what feedback they give, unless they're really being rude and like disrespectful and they don't appreciate your work, that's fine to let them go. But any other reason other than that, I really feel like you have to finish the project, right? Doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
they're giving you a million revision. Tell them, hey, look, we're only charging you for 3 revisions, but if you want another three, you're gonna pay more. But don't just be like, I'm not gonna do this. Just take your website. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want your, don't annoy me or whatever. Like that mindset I used to have is now sort of being changed because now I'm also a business and I'm hiring people to do it. Imagine someone does that to me, the amount of stress they puts onto me, right? Like, imagine a freelancer just halfway just gives up or just completely
Mm-hmm.
disappears and just gives up and be like, I don't want to do this site. Now you're like, oh shit, now I have to do it myself. And it just adds a lot more stress. And I think that
Yeah.
perspective comes from, you're also the client now, not just the freelancer.
Yeah, I think, yeah, man, that's crazy because I always remember you used to say, "Oh, bro, like this client annoyed me, pissed off." You know what I mean? But man, it's sick, like to see your mindset change. I mean, it all comes from
even
hiring
even
and
you, isn't it, like the
yeah,
recently, like one of the client was annoying you, but you still
yeah,
did the work that technically you over promised, but you still ended up
hmm,
doing it even though you
yeah,
you you actually didn't like it, but it was a promise that you made and you had to do it, right? Whatever they say,
yeah,
you still have to
exactly.
finish it.
It was one of those situations. So so I had this client, right? I'm not gonna get into the details, but I was meant to deliver something right to them. It was like part of the scope, right? It wasn't nothing to do with like the website. It was more to do with like tracking and analytics and whatnot.
Yeah.
Normally when you do that, you think you're just gonna get the script tags and whatnot just integrated to the website, but there was something a bit more complicated than that. I didn't come back and say, "Oh no, I'm not gonna do this," whatever. I stuck to my promise and I worked as hard as I can to deliver on those. Although initially I did not expect it to be that much work and that complicated. I told the client, like you said, Vim, like if you do come up to a situation where you kind of break your promise, just be upfront and honest and tell them, okay, this, here's the resolution. And that's exactly what I done. I told them, okay, this, this is a problem we're having. Here's the solution. Do this. They're like, okay, yeah, we
Yeah.
can do that. Obviously, there was a bit of an initial like, oh, what the hell, but it's fine. And then, yeah, and then I delivered on my promise, at the end. So I was like, just, and my mindset at the time is fair enough. If this client doesn't know me, I can just be like, yeah, pissed off, whatever. But no, I'm like, okay, this person paid me. It was on the scope. I made a promise. I have to deliver on that promise.
Yeah.
So yeah, just although it might get tough, sometimes we kind of overestimate a lot of stuff. You might think it's a bit simple, but when you actually get down and dirty in it, it turns out to be not what we're expecting. It's a bit more complicated. If that situation
Yeah.
arises like it did for me, just make sure that you just stick to it and just solve it. And even if you can't, just be upfront and honest to the client. Be like, okay, I just kind of overestimated how
Yeah.
complex this is going to be and find a
And
resolution.
these
But
are these yeah,
yeah,
these are all
pretty
the
much,
resolutions that I've sort of looked at. And yeah, just giving them options and keeping them in the loop, in case if
pretty
you
much, yeah,
do. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's
Cool.
kind of a real life example that I kind of been
Yeah.
through as well, so you guys can learn from it. Well, yeah, I mean, it was like a lesson for me as well. Like, always make sure that you understand exactly what you're kind of delivering and
Yeah.
understand the kind of expectations that you're setting. I think that's one thing that I
Yeah.
kind of lacked. I didn't know it was
Yeah.
going to be that
Same.
complicated. Is
Yeah.
that a fault for me? I don't know. Perhaps. Like, I
No,
think
because
I should have at
we
the beginning kind of analyzed the scope a bit more and asked more questions about, okay, what do you exactly want to do with
yeah,
this?
you learn with
But
experience, isn't it?
you learn, and that's pretty much it. That's literally the whole point of this channel, and the
Yeah.
whole point of even being a freelancer is like learning from your mistakes,
The next
growing,
time this
and
comes
we
again,
share
you
those
will make
lessons with
sure.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, pretty much. Yeah. There we go, guys. Those were the 5 points or 5 skills, habits, whatever you want to call it, that makes a great freelancer. Yeah, we really enjoyed this one.
Yeah.
If you also enjoyed this one, make sure that you leave a like and make sure that you hit subscribe and turn on the bell notification button if you do not want to miss out on future uploads. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.